I do one
just under
spring and then
community.
okay.
Yeah, so just like from the school year to now.
Okay, yeah.
It's two couple things.
Phone?
So does it, is it,
You know what, I can send you the concept breakdown.
okay, yeah, that'd be
And then you
great.
can just like see which
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Stoughton Area School District Board of Education for January 4th, 2016, our first meeting of the new year. And Bev, could you please take roll?
Mr. Dirks?
Here.
Ms. Burgess?
Here.
Ms. Fitzgibbon is excused. Mr. Fry?
Here.
Ms. Grassi?
Here.
Ms. Menzer?
Here.
Mr. Schumacher?
Here.
Ms. Sword?
Here.
Mrs. Tarkinian?
Here.
And our student representative is here.
Great, great, Madam Clerk. If it would please the board, I'd like to request that we do a flip with agenda item 3 and 4. There are, it's a school night and we have some moms of kindergartners, so I'm sure anxious to get their children to bed this before it gets too late. And I think that we have received some communication from parents. Tim is prepared to provide a bit of an update on Fox Prairie Kindergarten. I would just like to remind board members that this is not a posted agenda item, so we will not engage in discussion about it tonight, but I just felt like you might be able to add some clarity in your update. So if that's okay with the board, I would entertain a motion to make that modification in the agenda.
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Second, and they're all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So great, Tim, could you please give your district administrator report?
Thanks, Liz. As you know, as board members, you may be aware of, we have experienced this year some unanticipated behavioral concerns at at kindergarten at Fox. And some of the students had previously attended the District 4K, some others did not. Some of the behaviors were apparent in 4K, but not to the severity that we're seeing with some of them now. So we've been monitoring and assessing and allocating additional resources to Fox to help meet the needs of the students. In addition to the behavioral needs, they're sitting at classes, they have 3 classes. One's at 22, one's at 23, one's at 24. So average class size of 23. If you remember, our target is 22. So they're close, but they're a little over. Beginning of the school year, Fox, and this is typical of most schools, and Fox's school-wide PBIS team planned the teaching and review of school-wide behavioral expectations. As you heard Trish talk about at the middle school tour, it's part of our PBIS thing to say what is expected, etc. It was at this point, or a couple weeks into the school year, that we began to experience unanticipated kindergarten spikes in behaviors at Fox. And so what happened as the next step was we began to put things in place to help address some of these behavioral actions. All classes, kindergarten through 5th grade, at Fox implemented morning meetings. And this was a chance for the classrooms to come together to build a community, to build teams, to do some sort of activity. And so that's common across all the classrooms at Fox. To help address the behavioral needs that we were starting to see, there were weekly meetings of the kindergarten teachers, the school psych, school counselor, and Krista to address the kindergarten unique needs. And Krista was present in the kindergarten classrooms extensively when we started out the school year. And normally with kindergarten students especially, in about 3 weeks, these behaviors tend to kind of manifest and kind of diminish because they get used to the routines and they get used to our processes and our procedures. And we were starting to see that at Fox, they were not diminishing. And so the teachers and Krista worked closely with the parents and guardians to define expectations of behavioral and academic concerns of individual students and strategies. And we also worked through the special ed process and had started to look at identifying some students who might need some additional support, whether it's academically or behaviorally at the kindergarten level. Throughout the fall, the Fox Perry staff worked with individual student cases to address behavioral concerns. In September, continuing in September, a schedule redesign took place, and sensory breaks were implemented for several students when they needed to be away from the classroom. They just needed a break from the structure, and they needed a sensory break from all the stimuli in the classroom or what was going on. In October, we had behavioral specialists work with the kindergarten teachers for 5 weeks to design behavioral plans for students and teachers to address typical kindergarten behaviors and also more unusual kindergarten behaviors. And some of the things they worked on were classrooms were reorganized to provide better learning spaces and a better flow. Behavioral contracts were put in place for students that needed more support and help to reinforce the positive behaviors. Also in October, we redefined staff schedules so that each kindergarten class had an EA for most of the day. So we had a second adult into the kindergarten classrooms. In November, school psychologists and school counselors adjusted their time and worked with kindergarten classes and individuals on classroom routines and expectations. We went back to, again, saying, let's try to reestablish the classroom expectations and routines and see if we can reestablish some of that. They also facilitated small social groups to practice positive school behaviors. And additionally, counseling personnel was added to increase counseling services. And we communicated this to parents through an email and through correspondence home. Also in November, we made system-wide staffing shifts. An early childhood educator with a strong background in behavioral and social learning was reassigned to Fox Prairie, particularly working with the kindergarten students to help address the behavioral needs. In a typical elementary classroom, instruction includes direct instruction by the classroom teacher, followed by guided practice, free choice, rest time, etc., some monitoring time. And the teacher usually monitors all the activities. That's not direct small group instruction. With the kindergarten classes at Fox, we were noticing that this was increasingly more difficult to do. And so in December, realizing this was becoming even more increasingly difficult to do, we implemented a strategy we tried a strategy to split the kindergarten classrooms, where the classroom teacher would provide direct instruction and a small group, and an EA would supervise read to self, free choice time, and the guided practice skills. Again, this was communicated to parents through home. We continue to monitor and assess what is working and what is not working, to see what is making a difference and what is meeting the needs of our students. One option that has been on the table and has been discussed since the beginning was to add another section of kindergarten classes at Fox. And in particular, there's been more recent discussions of that as the semester went on. But we also realized that when you start a school year in a class and then you move to a different class, that's disruptive to the students and the learning environment. It's especially so at the kindergarten level, when this is their first full day classroom. So we were cognizant of that and taking that kept that in mind, and hence we were trying other methods without trying to pull that disruption for the students. We know that if we would add another section, that this smaller class size may not change the behavior of the students, but may allow teachers to make more individual contact with the kindergarten students. And so as a natural progression of, we've tried this, we've monitored this, we've tweaked this, we've tried something else to address it and to meet the needs. And so based on what we tried and what has worked and what has not worked, it is my recommendation that we add another section of kindergarten at Fox. I think we're at that point And I will formally make this request at the January 18th board meeting to add that additional staff member. But I believe that looking at this decision, we need to know the pros and cons. It's something we've been talking about, and we need to go into this decision with our eyes wide open. So I'd like to take a little bit of time just to kind of go through some what I see are pros and cons for adding another section of kindergarten at Fox. Pros. It reduces class size. We go from an average of 23 to an average of 17.25. We reduce transition time and make transitions easier. The kindergarten students in particular have less transitions, less places to go. Students will be with their whole class the entire day. If you remember, in December we tried splitting the class up, so they would be with the same 17 kids throughout the entire day for everything. There is potential for more individual attention from the classroom teacher, both academically and behaviorally, because we have smaller class sizes. EA time. We have taken our EAs to help support the kindergarten, and we've pulled them from other classrooms and other levels. So the EA time will be distributed more evenly among grade levels. Other grade levels at Fox will benefit from some increased EA support. And students will potentially be more successful in our music, art, phy ed classes because of smaller class sizes. But there are some cons, and again, we need to be aware of these cons. The variety of behavior and academic needs will remain in each classroom. As I said before, this may or may not address the academic and behavioral needs in particular. And there will still be more boys than girls in each classroom. This class at Fox is 2/3 boys, 1/3 girls. And so there's nothing we can do about that other than if we would completely shift boundaries and et cetera. Kaganza is just the opposite. Kaganza is 1/3 boys and 2/3 girls. And so it's just how the boundaries shook out. Approximately 33% of our by adding another section, approximately 33% of our kindergarten students will have a new teacher, because we will take students from every classroom to create the fourth. And students will have to adjust to new classroom, new environment, and new classmates, because they will be with some people they haven't been with before. A new teacher that we would hire, and there is a potential that it could be a brand new teacher who's just finishing their student teaching. It could be somebody with experience, it could be somebody retired, etc. We would know, but the new teacher will not have had all of the professional development and learning that we have been providing our staff. And realistically, by the time we get somebody in place, it probably won't be till semester. So again, let's go into this with eyes wide open. We will have to displace other educators from a room, and we will use what is called our ESL room, where we have other educators that work with students in small groups, and they also have their offices. We will have to displace those teachers, and this room will be smaller than the other kindergarten rooms at Fox. It will also not have a bathroom as the other 3 kindergarten rooms do, but this has been done before. This isn't out of the norm. There are times where we have 4 sections of kindergarten at Fox, and this isn't out of the norm. We've done it before, so it's not kind of something that we've never done before. EA time in the kindergarten classes will be shared instead of 1 per classroom, because with smaller class sizes, we're going to need our EAs in other grade levels and supporting other staff. Music, art, and phy ed teacher schedules will be impacted, because each one of those 3 areas will have to teach another section of kindergarten music, kindergarten art, kindergarten phy ed, so their schedules will be impacted, and we're going to have to shift their schedules. And we're going to be looking at our supplies and our furniture and our curriculum materials across the system, pulling those into this other classroom, but we may have to order some supplies to support them. Again, those are just kind of some pros and cons. There could be more. There could be more pros. There could be more cons. But those are just ones that we're starting to think about. I also, and we also talking, don't believe that this will be the end of Fox Perry's need for our support. It's not, adding a classroom is not a silver bullet. Yes, it's going to reduce class sizes, but it can't be, we wash our hands of it and we walk away. They're still going to need continued support. And again, this is yet another solution that we'll monitor, we'll assess, and we'll tweak if necessary and add resources if need be. Our counselor and school psychologists will start working immediately with students so that they can help anticipate a change. Because again, it will be traumatic and it will be a big change for kindergartners to move classrooms. And we intend to communicate this plan to parents as soon as possible. We've already posted the position to add a section, and based on what I'm hoping will be your approval on the 18th, we will hire somebody as soon as we can find a qualified person. But again, this is the next logical sequence in events that we've tried and supports that we've added. But we're at this point where I believe that it is in the student's best interest to add another section at Fox.
Can I just ask, since this issue is specific to this kindergarten class, I mean, do you anticipate then that'll follow through for?
That is
for
something that
second,
we're gonna have
third?
to look at and we're gonna have to really take into consideration. And so I can't say that forever, that they're always gonna be this small class sizes at some point, but we're gonna have to look at the behavioral and academic and social and emotional needs of this class in particular, coming through Fox, when we're making decisions on staffing going forward.
Any other questions, Scott?
So, excuse me, so if I understand you correctly, you're looking at least at this point, a long-term, well, not sub, but
Right.
a short-term.
Right.
Teaching
We would hire a teaching position for the rest of the school year.
Just for the school year,
Right.
at least at this
Right,
point.
because if, we are also going into our staffing and are looking at our long-range staffing, and so if that is something that we need to incorporate a full-time staff member, you know, we might be able to, if let's say we're gonna say 4 sections of first grade for this class, there might be some available FTE within the building that we may not need to add based on our declining enrollment and shifting that. So we'll look at that, all of that picture. So right now, it would only be for the rest of this school year. And then we would look at our staffing, and that will be brought to the board in March, usually March, April, to talk about our staffing needs for next year.
What about EAs? If you're going to add another classroom with another teacher, do you need to have another EA as well?
I think right now, I will hold off on that. I think we will try to meet the needs with the existing EAs and structures, because if you remember, we took all the EAs, or we took most of the EAs and have them supporting the kindergarten classrooms now. So we can pull back, or we can add to the kindergarten classrooms again as needed, kind of a ebb and flow. I don't believe right now we're at the point where adding another EA is something we're looking at. It may be in the future, but right now it's not something that I would recommend.
And we're just gonna stick to clarifying questions right now, because this isn't on the,
Yeah.
I was wondering, if that we have any idea what is causing the uptick in behavior concerns, and do we see it coming in next year's kindergarten as well? Or?
We are not alone in seeing an uptick in behavioral concerns at the kindergarten level. Okay?
not just at Fox.
Not just at Fox, okay? It's at all 3 of our elementaries, realizing it's not as extreme at Fox, but you talk to superintendents from Oregon, you talk to superintendents from McFarland, Monona Grove, DeForest, Verona, Middleton. Superintendents have all had the same conversations. And one of the things that I think is, and this is Tim talking because I don't have the data and I don't have the research to back up this right now. But I think as you see the accountability movement increase, and if you remember with the accountability movement in Common Core, we just shifted everything down. And I think some of the behaviorals that we're seeing are because we're stressing out our kindergarten students in particularly, and the stress is coming out. They don't know how to handle some of the stress, and it's coming out in behavioral. And again, that's just Tim's opinion right now. I don't have anything to, I don't have the research to back it up, but that's my personal opinion of what we're seeing.
So like with less play-based
Correct,
kind of
correct,
kindergarten.
and less time to socialize, and less time to adjust, and less time, we're now requiring of kindergarten students, and that's across the board in every district, what we're requiring of kindergarten students used to be required of first grade students.
One of the things I would be interested at some point for an agenda item is it strikes me that some of these children aren't enrolled in 4K, so a better understanding, and perhaps before Cheryl leaves the district, how we're recruiting families currently for 4K, and do we need to look at Mrs. Price certainly impressed upon me the need for 4K several years ago, but we, maybe just word of mouth and that conventional wisdom, there's a group of parents who don't know about that, as well as an understanding of our early childhood programs and identification, and are there things that we as a district can do, need to do to get a read on really young children who may be exhibiting, maybe there's even earlier intervention before I don't know if there is anything, but it just seems that there might be some things we could do, part in community education, part in better identification, parent outreach, through 4K, through physician offices, through other things in the community to help identify kids and then work with their families before they're officially enrolled in the school district. So maybe at some point in time I would be interested in either reading more about it or learning about that going forward. Anything else on this one? It will come back to.
I just wonder if we have to look at our kindergarten curriculum, if it's developmentally inappropriate, it's not gonna go away. And it's not just us,
Right.
I've heard it all over as well.
Right.
Yep. Okay, anything else, Tim?
Nope, that's all I had.
Okay.
And just wanted to thank you for, coming to the tour of River Bluff, and hope that it was eye-opening, and hope that you learned, kind of got a little bit of a taste of what the middle school is doing. They're doing some fabulous things. And it's not the middle school, if you've had students who have gone through the middle school, and it's not the middle school that even my son, who's a junior, went through. There's been a lot of additions, there's been a lot of great changes, and I give a lot of credit to the middle school staff for kind of realizing and saying, okay, this is what we need to do to meet the needs of our students, and they've done a tremendous job.
So 2 quick kudos. I don't want to leave the kindergarten issue without Krista. Thank you, because I know that this has been something that you've been trying to address, and just want to reinforce to board members, we have just wonderful kindergarten teachers at Fox Prairie who are giving it their all, and it's special cause, and we need to figure out the plan. So Tim has made that recommendation, and then Fred and Trish, thank you for hosting us this evening, and again, pass that along to your staff that even with the stinky holiday milk, it was still a pleasure to be there this evening. So thank you. And so now we would turn our attention back to public comment. If there are people who would like to address the board this evening, we ask that you come to the podium, that you state your name and address, and that you limit your remarks to around 3 minutes.
Hi, my name's Christina Clowder. My address is 2216 Hilldale Circle in Stoughton. So I will be brief because thank you for the comments that you made, and thank you for putting that first on the agenda to be sensitive to a request. And I will echo the sentiments that you just made, Liz, about the staff at Fox. They're outstanding. I'm a parent of a kindergartner in one of the troubled Fox kindergarten classes, and this has already been incredibly disruptive, so I'm not sure it could be more disruptive than it's already been. So I'll just give you that perspective as you worry about further disruption. It's already really disruptive. And so the staff have been incredibly creative, and it was really helpful for me as a parent to hear that full narrative of what's been happening from September through till today, because though I pay close attention, I'm not sure I really understood the full narrative of what's been happening. And I'm certain that other parents would feel the same way. And I understand that there's information can be, or it must be protected from parents, but it's also important that we be seen as partners in this, and that sometimes more information is better. As much information that can be shared is better, because if you leave us to make things up, that isn't a good thing. So I guess I have two, based on what you've said. I'm not a K-12 administrator, though I am an educator. And so I'll say this just to urge you to be efficient, because the school year is half over, and if you're 5, you've already been living in this thing for a while, and you know, faster is better. And I know that structures take time to change and hiring takes time to make, but you know, urgency is good here, I think, and urge that for you. And I guess just the last thing I would just request, and this goes back to the comments I made right away at the beginning, which is please bring us into this. I mean, I keep asking, well, what should I be expecting? What would success look like? And I don't know. I keep being told, well, we're going to study this, we're going to assess this, and I believe that you clearly are, but I don't know what I can expect as a parent, you know. And I have a little 5-year-old that comes home every day and spouts things off, and you know, he's 5, so I don't know how we can trust him, but how much we can trust him. But I have like regular feedback for you, and if you asked, I could offer it, right? And so please help us as parents more deeply understand, for those of us who want to, more deeply understand what we should be expecting out of these changes, because I mean, I came here with a whole list of concerns, which this may address, it may not. As you say, I understand this isn't a silver bullet. I'm not even sure it's the right answer. I have no idea, to be honest. But I guess I'll just say, see us more as allies, you know, as going forward, because I think we have things to offer and information to share with you about how it's really going day to day. So thank you for taking this up. Thank you for moving it to the front of the agenda. And again, thanks to all of the good work that's being done at Fox. And I do hope that this helps, this solution helps some, and I hope you do it with urgency. Thanks.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, everybody. My name is Lori Rudy. I live at 1997 Skyline Drive. I sent an email to you all. That was me. A quick story. I have a kindergartner at Fox. He cries a lot in the morning about going to school. Really struggles because it's been disruptive. But anyhow, my story. So a long time ago, in a land far away, there was a forest, a really, really beautiful forest, full of lots of different animals. Life was fabulous. One day, the eagle was up in a tree, and he saw all of his forest friends running through the forest. Couldn't figure out what was going on. So he went up high to look up to see what was going on, and he could see far in the distance that a fire had started in the forest. And he started going back through the forest to warn all of his friends, you need to move, there's a fire coming, for those who didn't know. And he saw his friend the chickadee. Chickadee was down on the ground, and Chickadee wouldn't leave. And so he swooped down and said, Chickadee, what's going on? You gotta go, there's a fire. And Chickadee was hopping back to the stream that was near his little home, filling up his little beak with water, walking over to his home, spitting out the water in his home to try and protect his home. And he just kept doing that. And Eagle said, come on, dude, we gotta go, there's a fire. What are you doing? And Chickadee said, I'm just doing the best that I can with what I've got. I feel like at Fox, you're doing the best that you can, and the teachers are doing the best that they can with what they have, but sometimes that's not enough. And they need your support and the district's support to change it up a little bit. I don't know if adding a class size, another class is the answer, but if you add another class, but everything else stays the same, I don't know that that's the answer either. Really looking at the culture in the elementary schools and how you can build a fostering, encouraging environment where bullying is not accepted early on will make every year go better. So be an eagle and soar above and see what the solutions are instead of that little chickadee.
Thank you. Lot to ponder. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? All right, seeing none, I'll turn it over to Bev Fergus for our consent agenda.
Thank you. This evening, I move approval of the December 21st, 2015 regular meeting and executive session minutes. I move approval of the December 17th to 30th, 2015 check register as presented. We would like to say a sincere thank you to the following individuals and groups and move approval for the donations to the district, $500 for high school student scholarship and related budget adjustments for $500. With great appreciation to his service to the Stoughton School District, I also move approval of the resignation for Fred Trotter, River Bluff co-principal as of June 30th, 2016.
The consent agenda has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda is approved as presented. We have one quick committee report from Donna Tarpinian with a legislative update.
Thanks, Liz. I just wanted to start out the new year updating you all on just a few pieces of legislation that have been proposed, and just to let you know what's happening. Assembly Bill 481 and its companion Senate Bill 355, which is regarding the restrictions on referendum and school funding mechanisms. If you remember, we passed a resolution opposing that legislation and sent that to all of our the legislators that represent the Stoughton Area School District. WASB testified at the hearing, the assembly hearing, and they oppose it. Governor Walker has indicated some support for part of it, maybe not all of it. He's being a little vague, but it's still pending, so I just wanted to update you on that. Assembly Bill 517, its companion Senate Bill 470 regarding the reporting of crimes and other incidents that occur on school property, school transportation, and at school sanctioned events. WSB opposed this as well at the committee, the Assembly Education Committee hearing, mainly because it is just going to be incredibly difficult to do. And they just, I think it was like a 4-page testimony if you want to look at WASB, but they just feel that there's just a lot of issues with it and it needs to be a little more comprehensive. If, we're not saying that we don't, WASB is not saying that we shouldn't want to report these things, but it has to have a framework around it. The Assembly Bill 581, Senate Bill 449, which is about licenses to teach vocational educational subjects. This was to give provisionary licensure to people who do not have a degree, an education degree, to teach certain subjects. WSB testified as neutral to the Assembly Committee on that hearing, only because they believe the bill is very piecemeal and is not really a comprehensive solution to the teacher shortages in certain areas. And then the last one, Assembly Bill 469, actually not the second to last, the use of changing rooms by pupils. There hasn't been a hearing yet on this, so WSB has not testified, but they will oppose this bill as well, mainly because they believe that we should leave it up to local control. It's a case-by-case basis. Each community is familiar with their individual cases and the community values, so they don't believe it should be mandated. And the last one, Assembly Bill 545 and its companion Bill 412, which is about providing life-saving skills instruction to pupils. There's a hearing coming up this Wednesday at the Senate Education Committee, and this is really a very simple piece of legislation. They're not saying total CPR. It would be just compression only, which you can do in about 30 minutes time. We've got some individuals in the community that are actually very supportive of this. Just talking to Tim on the way coming in, I heard that we're gonna actually be providing some kind of compression-only training during some basketball and
Yeah,
other
boys and girls basketball games.
boys and girls basketball games in another room in February or March. So, I mean, that's great. But they're looking for something anywhere between the 8th grade through high school, one class, 30 minutes, done. So that hearing is coming up, and I think we'll probably be hearing more about that. So that is all I had to share. Just wanted to get you up to date, and that's it. Thanks.
Any questions? Great. Next up, we have a couple discussion items tonight, this evening, and Tim, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce the Wood Communications Group folks.
I'd like to call Lynn Wood especially, who's our liaison, up. As you know, and I indicated to you, we need to work on our process of how we form a committee, and because we have a lot of tough decisions and work that's coming up in the future for the district. And I'm cognizant of the fact of what we're currently doing is not working. And so Einstein says that's the definition of insanity if I continue to do the same thing and expect different results. And so for us to continue to pull these committees together and the process together and expect different results, I think is stretching it. So I'm happy that Wood Communications is partnering with us to help us come up with our processes and our procedures and how we're going to do this. And I'm really excited to be working with them and what's going to come out of this. So I'm going to turn it over to Lynn and let her kind of just talk through what their process is going to be, kind of the scope of what they're doing, and answer questions.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lynn Wood, and my partner Ken Wood. We're with Wood Communications Group, a strategic communications firm based in Madison, and we really look forward to the opportunity to work with the district to really just step back a little bit from the processes that you've been using to address some significant issues, as I mentioned. And so based on our discussions and things that Tim has described, we have put forward a proposal that is going to give us an opportunity to just step back and take a look at what has been done in terms of some of the bigger issues that you've been addressing over the past several years. Certainly compensation is the most recent. We've heard about the insurance discussions and some other larger things that the district is looking at. And our proposal is that we work with you to identify what a process might look like that more succinctly looks at who's involved in the decision-making committees and really kind of establish a protocol for determining that committee, for identifying who's on it, what the objectives are, what the strategy for communication of those objectives are, etc. And then to move into using that protocol on the most recent discussion about compensation and sort of assessing where that is. And making sure that there's a communication strategy that goes over all of it. So, I didn't do an introduction at all, so I'm going to just do a local. So the process that we are looking at doing is, first of all, starting out talking with folks in each of the buildings. We've identified a representative, and actually are starting very soon to do interviews with just individuals from buildings, so we can start to get a sense of perceptions from within individual buildings. We will go back and talk to folks who have participated in committees in the past and establish, again, perspective, perceptions of what has worked, what hasn't worked. We'll do some additional research, including some moments of focus groups, a small number of focus groups, I guess, with the idea being that we would then make a proposal on what that strategy would look like. Pretty succinct, but something that people understand, are recognizing is something that we follow for each issue, regardless of what it is, knowing that it will have a district-wide or even community-wide impact. And then really making sure that there is a communication strategy that goes along with it, which clearly we have heard has been one of the difficult pieces. And so making sure that communication is transparent, that the process is interactive, and that you have something that everybody understands and can get behind, so that when big decisions are made, there is an easy place to understand where you fit into that process. And
And then the first test of this process will be, if you remember, we made the commitment that we're gonna bring back a compensation committee to look at our current compensation plan. And so the first kind of run with this new process, and Lynn and her group will help us facilitate that committee, where we'll be able to see it actually in use and be able to, okay, this worked or this didn't quite work, and we can tweak it and continue to massage and modify it. So this is, to me, the first step. We are committed to bringing back a compensation committee to have a discussion on it. But as I said before, if we brought it back how we always did it, you would see the exact same thing you saw last fall. I'm convinced of that. And so we owe it to the district, we owe it to the students, we owe it to the community, and we owe it to our staff to have a comprehensive process that everybody's voice, people have a voice at the table, and how are we gonna make the decisions, how are we gonna move forward, what's the scope of our work, etc. And that's what I'm excited to work with them on developing.
What were the criteria that you were using in choosing your initial interviewees?
We really are just working with Tim. We're starting out to just find a representative in each building. So we didn't lay out a long list of criteria. We were just looking for folks who would be willing to, share their own perspectives. Not necessarily people who are, really happy with how things were or really upset with how things were, but will just be able to give us that, first snapshot. I believe that based on that, we'll have some more specific criteria going forward. But this was really just that little test to figure out what things are.
And that was just one per building? Is that what?
We're just starting.
Just
on
one.
the
Okay.
Yeah, this
All right.
is just kind of the first look. We'll also do a little bit more in-depth look at a lot of communications that were surrounding previous issues, including compensation, so that we, can be, I think, be better informed and be able to help determine what that protocol should look like and what changes might be.
And the intent really is to make sure that we talk to or hear from all the key stakeholders that have been involved or will be involved later on down the road. And so that's really kind of what we want to get a sense of.
If the idea with this is to develop a protocol for all major decisions that we're going to have to make, including those that don't necessarily have most of their impact on staff, I think it's really important that you talk to people that are outside of the district employee pool as well, parents, business owners, etc. And I assume that's part of your plan, but I didn't hear that yet.
Right, no, that's a good
Yeah.
point. Yeah, when we talk about key stakeholders, we think of it as a community.
Okay.
So anybody who has a stake.
Okay.
I have two questions. Can anyone contact you to provide input?
We haven't yet set up a mechanism for collecting input, but that will definitely be a part of it. So I don't know what that will look like yet.
Thank you. Will the union be involved?
Most definitely.
First stakeholder.
Is it possible to change the plan that's in place already, where some people receive very, very large raises already? Is it realistic to think that we can back off of this plan at this point?
So we aren't talking at all right now about the plan or the content of what the decision making looks like. We're really focusing on the process that will get us to a point so that you have a committee that has been vetted, has gone through a process, and can address that issue. So at this point, we're not looking at anything specifically related to the outcome of the previous process.
Yeah, I also then have two questions. When you say the committee, you're going to be selecting the people that will be on the committee?
No.
No, okay.
No, it will be a process that is, like a framework that is used, so.
Okay.
It's an assessment of who needs to be involved, what the goals are, what the objectives are.
Okay, and how long do you think this is going to take?
The timeline that we've laid out with Tim right now is that we will spend the next 2 months, so January and February, collecting the research and drafting a protocol by the end of February for recommendations so that we can tweak it in March, and hopefully by the end of March be able to reconvene a committee for convene a committee that will lead the task process on and the compensation issue.
Thank you.
Personally, I just think we're facing some really difficult, some really tough issues, and they're going, 1892 is going to be, it's going to be a very difficult issue. We're facing declining enrollment, and we are going to have to make some very difficult decisions as a community going forward, and the issues are going to be tough. We have really thoughtful, good people, but we don't have a process that's clear to people so that they can participate. And while I may not like the outcome, I can feel good that there's a process, and I felt like my voice was heard, and I can move forward. And so absent that process, too many things come before us, and it's just people feeling really, they're feeling badly about what happened. So I think certainly there's that, it's not the people, it's the process, and we could use one. I think augmented by communication and more transparency in what we're doing. So I think that this is an effort well spent. There hasn't been anything as hard as what we will be facing as a district in the next 5-6 years that will fundamentally change, has the potential to change the way this whole district looks. And I think we need to be better at addressing those, defining scope, what's our process for determining who's involved, how do we link in community, how do we consider the impact of decisions on various stakeholder groups. And I think we can all develop our skills in that area, and clearly you guys have a lot of expertise. So,
I have one concern about the timeliness. We lost quite a few staff members last year. I think 40, close to 40, over 40?
37, I think.
30, okay. Too many. And we'll be approaching the season where people will be looking if they're feeling unhappy with the way things are going. So my hope is that we can really show our staff that this is underway, that we take, revisiting the plan seriously, that the promise to revisit it was real, because I don't want to lose more.
And, we sent out a communication before the winter break. Lynn contacted some people before winter break, and they're going full bore. And so one of the things that I'm hoping staff will see is they're collecting the information. They are helping to facilitate the groups. They're helping to get the focus groups, and they're coming into this. And again, as Lynn said, right now we're talking about the process. So we're not coming into this right now saying yes or no, or this is what we liked or didn't like about the compensation plan. Right now we're doing the process. And the email, and I think I sent a very similar email to all of you that I sent the entire staff, kind of outlined that said, we are committed to revisiting the compensation plan. We're committed to that. But we also think we need to take this very important first step. And ideally, I would have loved to have started this early. But one of the things that was very, very important to me was finding the right partners to do this incredibly important work. And I think we found the right partners in this. And so we had to take the time on the front end to find the right group to work with. And I'm really confident that what's going to come out of this will be of a benefit to the district, not only short term, but in the long term.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm sure we will see you again sometime and hear about your work.
Thank you.
So go for it. Thank you for coming tonight. Our last discussion item is a full-time open enrollment policy revisions. I'm going to turn it over to Policy Chair Donna Tarpinian to give us the background on on this one.
Thank you, Liz. The policy that you see in your packet, the revised one, I just want to be upfront. The policy committee has not actually reviewed this at all. I believe I foreshadowed at our last meeting that this is one of the this is one of several policies that we're going to have to go through a very quick turnaround, and what you see before you is actually something that came directly from WASB. It's very technical. It's very procedural, and I mean, there's a lot of like, you know, the actual rules that I know we've been trying to get away from in many of our policies. But because there's a legal ramification, I think it needs to have all of this. Perhaps we might be able to go through and fine tune it at some point, but what's really important right now is that this, we have some policy in place before the open enrollment period begins in February. So I think actually, even though we've talked about this is the first time we're looking at this, we'll still have time to look at it again. I'm assuming there's still going to be a two-step process that we can still get it approved in time.
And then we'll go to policy next Monday for also a complete kind of look at as
My
well.
eyes are already glazing over. But I just wanted to, I asked Bev to put in 2 pages out of a WASB PowerPoint that was put together. And the whole reason why we're actually having to look at this is that prior to this, and including this year, open enrollment, there is a piece that there was a undue financial burden on districts for accepting a student coming in, and also to allowing a student to go out. And that, with the latest budget bill, was repealed. It was eliminated. So that was one of the biggest reasons why this had to be redone. And I think while we could have probably figured out with our existing policy where we had to put this stuff, it's just, if you looked at the old policy, it was even longer than this policy. So I guess, you know, the policy group at WSB, they've got legal, they've got all kinds of people. I mean, you can actually subscribe to the services. I feel that I think we're probably not going to make a lot of changes to this, just because we want to be compliant. And I'm not even sure if DPI is actually finished. Do you know, Bev, yet? If they've even finished their rules around these changes. So I think, you know, going with WSB and having them provide this template, knowing that it is the best that we can do under the circumstances, and having something in place by that February 1st. This will apply to open enrollment applications for the 2016-17 school year. And there are some things to know. If there's anything that's happening right now for this school year, if there's anything that's currently being debated or in litigation or whatnot, this policy change would not even apply to that. Everything that is still going to fall under our existing policies. Did I give enough of a background on that to anyone who's listening? I know Bev is really involved pretty heavily with the open enrollment program.
Right, so what this repeals, can you explain, it repeals the non-resident district used to have to do a tuition estimate.
Correct.
For a child with special needs
Correct.
that was wished to open enroll into our
Right,
district.
and you could assess that dollar amount to the district they were coming into, or they were leaving.
Okay.
So you could have a student that had extenuating circumstances and needs, and you could say, it's going to cost us $80,000. And you could say to the resident school district, it's $80,000, and assess them a fee. Now with the change in state law, it's $12,000, regardless of, you know, the nature of the
Actual
disability.
cost.
Yeah, and so.
So we can recover $12,000 from them regardless of cost. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So in some regards, it may be the $12,000 may be more than what you need. In some aspects, it may be a lot less.
And as I understand it, Donna, the change is that we can't deny a student the opportunity to open enroll, and if we decide it's just gonna cost us too much, right?
Correct.
Right.
And in the old days, like now, we could.
Mhm. And they, I mean, they can essentially appeal for any reason and not ever be denied. And I will say that there are districts, Middleton is one of them, Middleton Cross Plains, that just simply did away with open enrollment for that reason. They no longer accept any applications. And if you have a policy that says we will no longer accept any open enrollment students, then you don't have to be addressing this. But we do accept open enrollment students. So.
So does that mean Middleton doesn't have anybody transferring out either? Or it's
No.
just?
No.
They just don't accept
They don't
anyone in.
accept anyone.
And to them, I mean, they're at capacity.
It's based on the seats available. And Middleton, because of the growth of the district,
Right.
doesn't have special education seats available.
And they've just simply set that as their policy.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, they did it for one of these reasons. It was just easier.
We as a board annually set the number of open
Mhm.
enrollment
Right.
seats available to us
Correct.
as well.
And that will be coming up.
So, did anyone review this and have any specific questions regarding this? It's pretty meaty.
Yeah, there's a lot in.
And staff, administration went through this and tailored whatever they could for our specific situation, but I assume it mainly is, that's why it's all in red.
Yeah, we made sure that everything that's in our current policy is covered in this policy.
Right.
So we did have to add some things to WASB, to the template that they sent us.
Okay.
We also had to add our own random selection process if we would get to a point where we set like 12 seats and we get 14 applications, we have to set a process. So that's in there, that's a little different from the template that you actually get from WSB, but yeah.
And did WSB provide this free of charge, since that, which is huge, because, we were all a little panicked about this.
I think they recognized that they did send me some sample policies from other districts, but everybody kind of has their own language, so this one was really hard to pull from somewhere else. We said, well, we have a template, send it to me.
Yeah.
And that's where we started.
So we're really, thank goodness that our membership in that organization helped us with that, because it is pretty difficult. And, it's one of those, we have a few of these kinds of policies in our manual that are just very meaty, but they're required, so.
Actually, the one that I got kind of stuck on today was the truancy related criteria. When it says that open enrollment application shall be denied if the student was habitually truant during any semester of attendance in a district school. So does that mean Stoughton? I guess I had a hard time understanding, did that mean open enrollment
Right, so
or?
if we have a student, the way I understand it, if we have a student who, let's say, open enrolls here from McFarland,
Mhm.
and then is habitually truant, we can revoke their open enrollment to us and saying, because you're habitually truant, we're no longer allowing you to open enroll here.
Okay. That makes a little
Anything else? This will come in front of us again. If there's something else that you see, feel free to contact the policy committee member for questions, and this will probably be on our agenda on January 18th. Okay, our coming up on January 20th, 21st, and 22nd is the annual Wisconsin Association of School Boards convention. Each district is allowed to assign someone to be our delegate, and Scott graciously accepted that appointment last April. We're also fortunate in Stoughton because we have Donna Tarpinian, who serves on the delegate, what are you?
The Policy and Resolutions
She's on
Committee.
the Policy and Resolutions Committee. So between the two of them, Scott and Donna know the resolutions pretty thoroughly. They've been uploaded in Neptune. I think it's important for board members to understand that these are advisory votes that help WASB. It guides their legislative advocacy, and that there may be some things that you want to call out here, but it has been the practice of the board. There may be something that comes up in discussion on the floor where that's, Scott's, we talked about this, but in context of how this could impact our district, other districts. So we historically have given them guidance on anything that is particularly important to us, but suggest that the delegates just use their best judgment. That being said, though, there may be a couple of these that board members want to talk about. So I would just throw that open. I know, Donna, there was at least one that you were interested, you had some feelings on.
Yeah, I guess I'm more interested in knowing what some other folks, if they had any.
Yeah, I think it's real important to bear in mind that none of this is rulemaking.
It's just the tone that the WASB goes in, right?
As I understand it, it's basically one of WASB's tools for kind of taking a pulse on how districts are feeling about various issues.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then it comes out in the form of a formal resolution that's voted on or amended and voted on, et cetera.
Yeah, and everyone, there's a new one made each year, but there's a booklet that you get, resolutions adopted by the delegate assemblies. And it's just saying, it's sort of like, this is what we support or we oppose. The tricky thing with these is that some people just sort of get really emotional about some of these resolutions, and they think they're passing laws, and they're not. So the discussion can get kind of heated, actually. And it is a little tricky because they can modify resolutions on the floor simply by changing maybe one word. It completely flips the meaning of the resolution. So that's why it's really difficult for us to, I think we just want the delegate has a sense for what the board believes and what they will support, and you kind of have to make a decision on the fly. It's a yes or no vote.
I promise to be tempered.
I do have one question about the state mandated graduation requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So they're saying that the WASB supports local board control for determining its specific high school graduation requirements. Does that take into account all the state mandated tests and even that, what's the
civics
the
test.
civics test?
Well, I think that's basically what they're saying is
Right.
that instead of being mandated by the state, they support local control, letting local school boards decide what are those, as long as you're you're following the standards that are set forth, sort of as a floor, but adding the civics test is a good example where it's just going to be more cost.
Right. Well,
And
of course.
it's not funded.
So
And
the
it's not
WASB,
funded.
of course, would support school board or local board control, but that does
Right.
not really have much to. That's not going to do anything if the state decides to do what they want.
Right.
They've
And-
already said that they're going to do it.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
it's already
right.
part of the law.
So it's just what we would hope.
What we're
we would wish.
basically saying is let us decide.
Yeah.
And if you're going to impose assessment on us, then fund what it's going to cost
Right.
for us to have our kids meet those assessments.
So it
This
helps.
isn't obvious.
It helps the lobbyists at WSB know what people are thinking. Liz said it right, just right. It's taking the pulse. One of the things, there are several resolutions that came before the committee that were never moved forward. And there were three things we had to decide. Was it something that was timely? Was it something that warranted discussion by the full assembly? And I can't even remember what the third one was. I probably have it written in here somewhere. And so it had to kind of fit that criteria. And so several of these did not move forward simply because they were very specific to like a you know, a school district. And as it is, there are already resolutions in here that are pretty specific to a number of just, you know, very small number of districts. But with that being said, I mean, it's good to have the debate. It's good for the lobbyists to know what people are thinking, and it's great. It seems kind of boring, but it's actually really kind of interesting to be a delegate, because all 424 districts are represented, and to hear what some other districts believe is almost kind of unbelievable. But, you know, I mean, it's a regional thing, but I mean, it's a good exercise.
Anything else that people wanted to? Bring up?
The one about, is it line 40, talking about the voucher program? And it says private schools may only be eligible to participate in the statewide voucher program if they've been in existence for 5 years. So that could even be an out-of-state or a corporate. Or does it have,
That was brought forth by Green Bay School District, who is really fighting a big push by the private school industry, and I say industry, I mean, it is an industry, to get kids to get out of the public school and go to a voucher program. And Milwaukee also has had a lot of issues with kind of fly-by-night schools that really just sort of opened up a shop, and then all of a sudden they got vouchers and then they shut down after they got the money. So the reason for having that time limit was that, you know, we can't say that you can't do it at all, which is really what we prefer, but that it needed to be something that was established already before they could actually get vouchers.
okay.
Whether that's gonna fly or not. I mean, I think WSB is already on record saying that they oppose vouchers schools anyway, but.
Well,
this
and I
would be
think
one
this
thing.
is a good example of we're not making rules. I think
Right.
that the majority in the legislature right now is pretty heavily in favor of expanding vouchers. And WSB can say, we think it's a terrible idea, but.
Which they've done. I mean,
Yeah,
they're on
well, yeah,
record saying-
yeah, but, you know, we may just be shouting into the wind.
I also wanted to call out resolution 16-01, which allows a provision for school districts to have time to adjust to state law changes. I mean, we're sitting here this evening. Had we not been provided a policy, we would have had to spend considerable staff time and probably external resources getting a policy drafted that would pass legal muster, protect the district, and we just don't have that expertise. And that's just one example of some of the changes that are built into this, the current budget that we're responsible for implementing very, very quickly. So I really appreciate that resolution.
That one, I'm sure, will pass unanimously. But there, you always wonder, there's always that one person who votes against something like that. Who are you?
It means
But
they're colorblind, they can't tell green from red.
they hit the wrong button. But, yeah, there was a lot of discussion on that. And many resolutions came from, very similar ones came from different school districts, so we kind of worked to like merge and consolidate them and pick out the pieces that were most applicable to the general school district, and so those will be done. And at the same time, on the floor, an emergency resolution can be brought forth, and so Scott's going to have to make that decision for us, whether to support it or not support it. It has happened every year that I've been a delegate.
I recall that too. Anything else on? This is quite an experience. You'll enjoy it.
You're like locked in, no one.
Everyone should do it once or twice to have that experience of being a delegate. And also, Donna, your work on the policy committee, it's actually quite an honor to be selected to serve on that committee, so we
Thank
are.
you. This was my last year, they only let you do it 2 years
Right.
at
So
a time.
we're proud of Donna for serving in that capacity. So if you read through these, have any other feedback, I'm sure Scott would appreciate any friendly advice, but I'm sure you can handle it as well, Scott.
I think so.
Just pointing out to board members, our next regular meeting is January 18th. We will not have a building tour, but we will have a building tour February 1st at Fox
Yep.
Prairie, and we will just meet directly at Fox
Correct.
Prairie at 6 p.m., and then we'll hustle back in order to start.
And the January 18th board meeting, you will hear from this year's recipients of the innovation
Oh, cool.
grants.
Oh, very good.
So
Great.
that will be on the agenda the next.
So we'll meet at Fox, but then
No, the Fox is February 1st.
Okay, but then we'll come here for the board meeting.
No.
Oh, we're
So
gonna-
January 18th, we're here, there's no
Okay.
building tour, it's the innovation grant presentations. February 1st, we'll meet at Fox at 6 for a building tour, and then instead of coming back here, we'll meet probably in the library at Fox and have the board meeting at the library at Fox.
And it will stream, so no pressure, Fox Prairie.
Yeah.
It'll be our first time doing that. And Bev, can I just make a request that you send out maybe a couple reminders so that, for that meeting?
For Fox?
Yeah, so that we remember where we need to go and.
Time and place.
I'll arrive at the right spot. All right, with that, if there's no other, yes, Scott?
People who've been on the board for a while know that we generally don't get to go to the Pops concert at the high school because that's a board meeting night. This year it's not. February 8th is the Pops
You
concert.
want to make that?
I highly recommend
This is my
that.
first
Except
one.
there's not going to be a spaghetti dinner this time around.
Yeah, there is.
No, I've heard it was
It's on the
canceled.
calendar.
We also
Look at
tonight
it.
got wind of a couple things coming up at River Bluff. So could we get a list of those?
Yep.
The talent show, there are a couple musical things. Could you just remind us so that if that fits in, a good way for board members to show their support for our staff and our students
Yep.
is to attend those kinds of things. So if it works in your schedule, people really appreciate it. So anything that's coming up, if you can remind us, that would be terrific. And with that, unless there's any other business from anyone, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
And second.
A second by Wanda. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.